Okay, so we're talking about the Bankster Thieves. Again, this is Bankster Thieves number 3. To have a proper foundation for this video, you should be watched or should have watched Bankster Thieves 1 and 2. Bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members, de facto courts were under martial law rule, quasi-contracts and Roman civil law, and peace officers and law enforcement officers. And those give you a good foundational understanding before you watch this one. This is found in the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. That's found at Book 48 of the Statutes at Large, page 337. Section 15 is used in this act. The term United States means the government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. And so therefore Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. They're meant for use by government employees. And that's it. And any other use is an improper use. And it's interesting to note here in Section 16, the right to alter, amend, or repeal this act is hereby expressly reserved. In other words, this act can never be changed. Section 17, all acts and parts of acts inconsistent with any provision of this act is hereby repealed. So this is, as long as the United States exists, this act is set in stone. It can never be changed or amended. This is Chapter 274, an act to further regulate banking, banks, trust companies, and building and loan associations in the District of Columbia and for other purposes, which was approved March 4th, 1933. You can find this at 47 Stat 1564. That's Book 47 of the Statutes at Large, page 1564. And paragraph B is where we're going to be interested in here. Says that no corporation shall engage in or do business of a bank, of deposit, or a fiduciary business in the District of Columbia, nor shall any branch be established to carry on any phase of such banking or fiduciary business in the District of Columbia until the approval and consent of the controller of the currency is secured. So what they're essentially saying here is that all banks in America are in the District of Columbia. And the controller of the currency regulates all the banks. That's well established. And but I don't care if that bank's in Texas or California or where it is. It's in the District of Columbia. That's why do you think they have a U.S. flag at every bank? They're saying that that's a U.S. jurisdiction there. Think about it. Anyways, this is Chapter 186, an act to amend the Federal Reserve Act. Section 3 says all power and authority with respect to issuance of circulating notes known as Federal Reserve Bank notes shall cease and terminate on the date of the enactment of this act. And Section 4 is all power and authority of the President and the Secretary of the Treasury with respect to issuance of United States notes shall cease and terminate on the date of the enactment of this act. And so this act can be found at Book 59 of the Statutes at Large, page 238. It was passed and approved in June 12, 1945, and what they're essentially saying is that Federal Reserve notes are not issued by the government. The Federal Reserve notes and U.S. Treasury notes have nothing to do with the government. It's all private. Federal Reserve notes are bills of credit, and this is Title 12 United States Code, Section 411. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States. Think about it. That means they're bills of credit. Anything purchased with Federal Reserve notes is purchased on United States credit. So who do you think owns it? If it's purchased on United States credit, who owns it? United States owns it. That's exactly what's going on here. They're meant for internal use of the government. I mean, that's entirely consistent with the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. If you have a bank account, it's in the District of Columbia. All bank loans can only be to U.S. citizens in the District of Columbia. All mortgages are to U.S. citizens in the District of Columbia. All controversies involving banks only get an Article 1 military tribunal. It's a military dictatorship in the District of Columbia. If you volunteer for that, then you just volunteered for the military dictatorship. Think about it. And that's why we have the D.C. thugs running around all over the place assaulting people. And, that's going to be in some of my other videos. Anyways, this is it's even been codified. Okay, this is found at 26 United States Code, Section 770139. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in, is not found in any of the United States judicial districts, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purposes of any provision of this title to jurisdiction of the courts and enforcement of summonses. And so again, you get District of Columbia courts, okay, and District of Columbia is a plenary jurisdiction, and we're going to talk about that more right now. This is a National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, a U.S. Supreme Court case, 1948. Quote, "We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington, District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that reads military dictatorship, boys and girls, nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union." And that's citing a case from 1804. So it's not even, this is nothing new. Okay? So that's why I say these banks, or anywhere there's a U.S. flag like public schools, okay, that all falls under the Department of Education, okay? Again, that's why they can have metal detectors and do all of the stuff they do at public schools, and it's interesting that when they hold these false flag operations, they always do it in U.S. territory, like a public school or something like that, and it's kind of interesting. Anyways, so they're engaging in a mixed war, okay? A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and on the other by mere private persons. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. And with their fictitious war name, under international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. And so, again, they engage in mixed warfare, and it's warfare. Okay, that's exactly what it is. They turn, under the Trading with the Enemy Act, they turn all U.S. citizens into enemies of the state. So if you think that you're stupid enough to think that you're one of their U.S. citizens, which is really a D.C. citizen, then D.C. citizens are in a military dictatorship, and they make war on D.C. citizens. A citizen of the United States is a citizen of the District of Columbia, and this is found in the Uniform Commercial Code, Section 9.307, subparagraph H. United States is located in the District of Columbia. There's been created a fictitious federal state of XXX within a state, and this is actually Swartz versus O'Hara Township School District, which is a Pennsylvania case, but they're citing a U.S. Supreme Court case. This is also in Texas tax code, where it says in this state, and so in this state, when they use in this state in any of the Texas codes, this is what it means. It means within the exterior limits of Texas and includes all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. Okay, and that is it. And so within this state, so I don't care if it's a tax code, if it's the transportation code, whatever code it is, when they use the phrase in this state, they're talking about federal areas of Texas. That's exactly what they're talking about. And that's what you have to understand. And every state, I don't care whether it's California, I guarantee you that they're going to have similar provisions in their statutes as well. This is modern money mechanics. This is a close-up of that page, shows that it's published by the Chicago Federal Reserve. This is the title page, and this is a close-up of that page. And Modern Money Mechanics was published for the first time by the Chicago Federal Reserve Bank in 1961. I downloaded a 1994 version from Wikipedia. This is page 6 with the highlighted portion. This is the same page zoomed in. And we're going to go right here is what that highlighted portion says. It says if business is inactive, the banks with excess reserves probably will have opportunities to loan the $9,000. Of course, they do not really pay out loans from the money they receive as deposits. If they did this, no additional money would be created. What they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credits to the borrower's transaction accounts. Loans and deposits both rise by $9,000. Reserves are unchanged by the loan transaction, but the deposit credits constitute new additions to the total deposits of the banking system. So think about it. What they're saying is that there are no bank loans. There is not one loan by a bank in America there's no loans. If it says that it's a loan, it's a fraud. It's a lie, okay? Because they didn't loan anything, okay? What they do is the person that signs the promissory note, and remember, we're talking a DC citizen, but when the DC citizen signs the promissory note, they deposit it into an account, and based on that deposit, they cut a check. And so they are not out one penny. They're not out one penny. This whole subprime crisis and all this other stuff that's going on these days is all orchestrated by the Bankster Thieves. And if you watch, Bankster Thieves 1 and 2, it goes through and shows how they orchestrated the whole thing. So I would encourage you to do so. And so it's all orchestrated by the Bankster Thieves to steal a bunch of property. That's what it comes down to, because when they go and do all this stuff, they start shrinking the money supply and forcing people out of work, and they can't make mortgage payments, so then they get to steal their house, and they steal property, and they make out like bandits. That's why they're called Bankster Thieves. There's no such thing as a bank loan in America, in USA, or Canada. All banks use the Uniform Commercial Code, which is governed by UNIDROIT, which is unconstitutional. These Bankster Thieves offer their so-called loans to convert the property over to the District of Columbia and to justify their theft by taxes. Then the president can pledge the property collateral for the fictitious federal debt. Think about it. If you have to pay taxes, then you don't own it. Think about it. Bankster Thieves offer their so-called loans to drive up the prices and force people to take one of their so-called loans. So they drive up housing prices, so then they can get more people to take their so-called loans. It drives the prices out of affordability of homes. Bankster Thieves deliberately orchestrated the subprime crisis and other financial crises so they can steal people's homes with their fraudulent foreclosures. Bankster Thieves deliberately orchestrated the subprime crisis and their financial crises so they can compel more people to use their private money system. Bankster Thieves orchestrate crises to make more business with their bought and paid for Article 1 military courts in the District of Columbia. See Ecclesiastical Courts video that's coming up. Bankster Thieves orchestrate financial crises to make business with their owned and operated courts. See the Ecclesiastical Courts video. The divorces, all these foreclosures and stuff cause divorces. They cause broken homes. It causes kids to grow up without a family. So then that precipitates juvenile delinquents. And all of this is making business for their ecclesiastical courts and their owned and operated prison industry. And there's other turmoil. Divorces is a good example, because what happens is they go and convert a right into a privilege. What's the Bible say? The Bible says give her a writing of divorcement. If you're not satisfied with your wife, then you just give her a writing of divorcement. You don't need somebody's permission. And so they convert a right into a privilege, and then they go and start passing statutes about bigamy, and so then they're going to send their hired thugs out to assault you and kidnap you and falsely imprison you if you don't participate in their statute. This is the kind of game they play. Bankster Thieves orchestrate financial crises to make business with their bar member buddies. See the bar members videos. All of this goes back to the Vatican, and it's satanic. So what can we do? We can refuse to participate in their de facto system. We can use any other money system but Federal Reserve notes or Bank of Canada notes. We can use qualified endorsements and all checks and negotiable instruments. For example, you can use for deposit for credit on account or in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value, or you can just insert Bank of Canada notes or Bank of England notes, because it all works the same way. And what you're essentially saying is that I didn't get, it says on the front of that check, it says dollars. I didn't get dollars. I got credit on account or non-redeemable banknotes. And you can also put down redeem for lawful money, and either way you're objecting to their IOUs. We can educate ourselves so we know when our rights are being violated. We can work with our friends and neighbors to reestablish our common law juries and our common law de jure courts. We can educate our public servants because many of them do not know any more than we do. We can educate other people by circulating this video in any other way possible. We can work with our friends and neighbors to get the United Nations out of America and Canada, anywhere that wants to be free. The United Nations is owned and operated by these bankster thieves and their Vatican handlers. We can educate ourselves about what a common law jury is and what the law of the land is. We can demand a common law jury of our peers. Judgment Day is coming for these bankster thieves, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing some of them do that little dance they do at the end of a common law rope. There's common law courts springing up all over, and these thieves are going to be brought to some real justice. I'm glad it's not up to me. We can never take the law into our own hands because that makes us worse than they are. It's interesting to know that many of these bankster thieves are being suicided. That's obviously because their handlers don't want any witnesses and about what's going on, and so if they go and suicide them, then all of a sudden there's no witnesses to testify. See, that's how these bankster thieves work. Other videos is bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bankster thieves 1 and 2. We're under martial law rule, de facto courts, bar members, quasi-contracts in Roman civil law, United Nations clerks masquerading as judges in Canada, and the Canada border pigs. Upcoming events, there's going to be some other videos about color of law, fire the United Nations clerks masquerading as judges in Texas, all de facto courts or Vatican courts, how to do a habeas corpus, churchianity in the Vatican, United States is the District of Columbia, United States citizens are DC citizens, and the U.S. border pigs, which I'm debating about whether to call that DC border pigs or U.S. border pigs. It's one and the same anyways. It's all DC. And so anyways, I appreciate the time you take to listen to my video. I hope you get something out of it, and please circulate it around. We got to educate people. Either that or just educate people on your own. We need to change all of this, and the only way we're going to change it is by a general awareness of what's going on. And anyways, I hope you have a real nice day.